personally, until I see a major break of structure, this for me is always a risk entry. So whatever I do, if I'm trading this, let's say I am trading early, I'm always placing my stop below the ultimate low, which is the raid low, okay? I'm not going to be trading this without my stop below the low, because as you can see here, price has pushed down, it's taken more liquidity out here, and this will happen. Your zones won't always hold perfectly, and then we've had that reaction. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 6. Nope. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 7 of the Beginner to Winner series, introducing my face. This is the real, actual face of CFFX. It's good to meet you all properly. I want to talk through today 4 things that will change the way you trade supply and demand. We've gone over a couple of these already, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail as to how we actually trade them and how we actually use them in our trading. The first 3 we have kind of discussed, we've touched on briefly, we've talked about the theory behind them. But number 4 we haven't actually discussed yet, so make sure you stay tuned to the end so we can go through that properly. Of course, if you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you leave a like and a comment below for me, and as always, pop that notification bell so you can be notified when the next video lands. Now, I've got a really good example here. I've got kind of a few really good examples here of what I'm looking for whenever I'm trading supply and demand, and I'm going to talk you through kind of how I trade them and the sort of things that I'm looking for, and hopefully it will give you a bit of insight as to how you can use it in your own trading. We've discussed what supply and demand is. We've discussed the reason why supply and demand does what it does. We haven't actually gone into kind of how we trade them really. So this is what this is going to do. This is going to close off the supply and demand section of the course, and by the end of this, I promise you this, you will trade supply and demand much better than you've ever done before. These are the sort of gems that I want to give out that you don't really hear about elsewhere on YouTube. I spent years looking for this kind of information, and I really try and keep it simple so that you guys can understand it. I am running a Discord mentorship at the moment. It's completely for free. All you need to do is to head over to my Instagram at strongmoneyforex and pop me a DM. I'm looking for a certain type of trader, someone who really wants to learn, not somebody who's looking for free signals. So if you're interested in free mentorship from me, please make sure you head over to the Instagram at strongmoneyforex. We can have a bit of a chat, see if we fit. And hopefully I can become your new trading mentor completely for free. So first thing I'm looking for that we've discussed in previous videos is a raid. Okay, whenever we are trading any kind of supply or demand, we always want to see a raid before. Now that doesn't mean that you can't have a supply or demand zone without a raid, because there are these kind of let's try and find one in this chart. I'm sure there is one here. This technically here is a demand zone, technically, okay? It's got a very small raid, but you will get them all over, where that's kind of one as well. You will find them all over. You'll find these moves that just kind of shoot up. That technically is one as well. These are all demand zones. Anywhere that you see kind of an extreme reaction from, is technically a supply or demand zone. But ultimately, there's certain key properties that we're looking for, and you need to get used to not just average trades will return you average results. And whilst this is a demand zone, this is a demand zone, they're not really clear and obvious like this one. Okay, and that's why when price comes back to them, you have kind of it doesn't fulfill all the properties we're looking for. Prices come back, yeah, it's had a reaction, yes, that's the demand zone. Was it that high probability? I mean, look, no break of structure, no real clear raid. It wouldn't be something that I would have traded, and price just came in and reversed straight away. There wasn't the collection of orders that we want. If you remember from the last video, what we want to see is price exchanging hands. We want this kind of this arcing motion while price is kind of exchanging hands, and giving us a change in direction. We want that kind of that curve in price to show us that sellers are turning into buyers, orders are building up, and price is then going to shoot off. This is just, there's probably no real way of getting into that unless you're just taking a risk entry. So these kind of mucky supply and demand zones that don't really fit the criteria, don't really, ideally we would have had a raid there. that would have given us a real clear sign that we were going to go long. But you know, it didn't do that. So there's a few things that you want to look at, and get used to looking for perfect trades. Okay, we want to be trading when the stars align, not any time else. There are always going to be trades that you miss, and get used to that. Get used to missing trades. If you can get used to missing trades and just waiting for the really, really perfect ones, I promise you this, you will do so much better in this industry. Okay, so these two are really valid zones. We've got our raid, okay, and we've got this push up. The next thing that we're looking for is the impulsive move with the imbalance. Now, what I don't want to see when I'm looking at supply or demand zone, I don't want to see this kind of choppy price action with loads and loads of wicks. That for me is not an impulsive move. That's just a push away. An impulsive move needs to have a really quick reaction. It needs to be obvious. It needs to leave big long candles behind, and most importantly, candles with imbalances left in them. The reason why we're looking for these imbalances is because it acts as a magnet for price to come back to. And if we've got a magnet for price to come back to, the likelihood of our zone upholding and price returning to it is much higher. If you're trading supply or demand without imbalance, you are doing it wrong. And I promise you this, you are either getting lucky if you're winning, or you're losing. And most of us out there are losing. It's as simple as that. So if you can get used to trading these zones in the right way and making sure they look perfect every time, you will have much better results. I promise you that. Okay, so these zones are high probability for price to return from. And then what we do is we look for element number 3, which is a break of structure. Now, ideally, these need to be major breaks of structure, not minor breaks of structure. That is a major break of structure. Why is it a major break of structure? Well, that's a swing point. Okay, these kind of lower time frame breaks of structure, they are breaks of structure, and they do give us some kind of indication that price is likely to move up, but they don't give us an indication that price is likely to continue the trend. All this tells us at this point here is that this smaller time frame trend is broken. It doesn't tell us that the larger, higher time frame trend is going to continue. And so minor breaks of structure are okay, major breaks of structure are what we want. So we've got our raid, okay, we've got our impulsive move with our imbalance left behind, and we've got our major break of structure. Now this for us is a really high probability zone, okay? Once we see this, we just frame the last down move above the imbalance like that, okay, the last down move, and then we mark it as one of our high probability zones. Simple as that, okay? Same thing applies here. We've got our raid, we then have an impulsive move away, we have minor breaks of structure first, as you can see there, and we have major breaks of structure here and here, depending on what your swing points are. Obviously, people trade, people draw their swing points differently, but you can't argue that one of these is definitely the swing point, regardless of how you trade. We've had our impulsive move, we left behind multiple imbalances, and it's these 3 confluences that we're looking for to signal us to start paying attention to that zone. Remember, when you take these trades, we don't want average. So trading without imbalances, but everything else okay, raid, break of structure, that might work. And from time to time, it does work. That's a good example, okay? We've got our push up, we've got very little imbalance, okay? On a higher time frame, there's probably no imbalance. That is kind of it's a really good example, actually. Really mucky raid. Technically, there are some lows there that we've swept out, okay? So technically, that is a raid there. Technically, no, this is genuinely, yeah, so this is actually a major break of structure. Right, so we've got a mucky raid, okay, which we're not that fussed about because it doesn't sweep any of these key lows. These are key lows because they're swing points. Remember, when price raids, we want it to raid areas of liquidity where there's loads of orders sat, loads of stop losses, okay? If you don't know what I mean, go back to the last video, okay? We want loads of stop losses under here, broken, okay, and swept. This is pushed down. It's kind of cleared out this kind of interim, this internal liquidity, but it hasn't cleared out any of these external liquidity points. So the raid's shit, basically. We then had minor breaks of structure and then a major break of structure, to be fair. And we've kind of had some imbalances, but a lot of it's been filled in, okay? All in all, you're looking at that and you're thinking to yourself, it's not perfect. And if it's not perfect, we don't want to be trading it. It's as simple as that. So ultimately, what's price done? It's come back down. It's then raided these actual genuine liquidity points that we wanted raided in the first place, and it's come into our really clean supply and demand. So this is a really good example of a strong supply and demand zone like this one and a weak supply and demand zone like this one. Get used to waiting for the perfect trades and the perfect criteria to come up. Stop settling for average because it's costing you money. It's as simple as that. If you can understand that waiting for everything that you need to line up will make you more money, you will stop making those mistakes over and over again. Okay, so these are the three elements that we need to verify a zone. We've got raid, impulsive move with imbalance, and then a breaker structure, preferably a major breaker structure. Okay, now the fourth thing that I'm looking for that really signals me into a trade, and before I start paying close attention, is for 50% of the zone to be taken. Now the reason why I look for this is for a couple of reasons. Okay, firstly, most of the orders are going to be at this 50% area. Let's just use our rangefinder and I'll show you exactly where that is. Okay, that's our 50% zone. Most of these orders are going to be in the 50%. The reason for that is pretty obvious. It's an average of the high to the low of the zone. If people are placing orders all over the shop, okay, and you've got loads of orders going into the marketplace, and we've got big players, little players, you know, hedge funds, institutions, banks, etc. Obviously, most of them will end up just automatically placing trades in the average, which is right in the middle of the zone. So just be conscious of that. Okay, that's the first thing that we're looking for. Okay, is these 50% of the zone to be taken. Now, the reason why I wait for this is when it's a really high probability zone. So I'm just getting rid of all these pound symbols now. When it's a really high probability zone like we have here, when it is literally picture perfect, raid, push up, imbalances. Let me just draw my imbalances back on. I'll just draw this one just for simplicity. So raid, breaker structure, major breaker structure, impulsive move, and balances. When it's a really picture perfect zone like this, what will often happen is, let's say we're using a refined version. Let's get rid of that, 2 seconds. Let's say we're using a refined version of this zone, okay? And, oh no, the refinement is down here. Okay, what often happens is this, because there's so many orders sat in here waiting for buys, what often happens is price will come in, it will tag it, and it will shoot off, as you can see here. We've come in, we've picked up a load of buy orders, we've taken out a load of sell orders, and we've immediately shot up. Okay, now if we zoom in, you can see on the refined version of the zone, it hasn't yet tagged 50%. And what does price do after this? Well, after this, it comes right back down, takes the 50%, gives us a great impulsive move, and pushes then up for our bigger move. So let me just replay this so you can see it properly on a lower time frame. Okay, what's happened here is price has had an immediate reaction to the zone because it's a good zone. We've qualified it with the raid, with the breaker structure, with the imbalance, the impulsive move, and that means that there's loads of orders sat there. So it's usual for price to have a reaction. And what I used to do all the time, and you guys are probably doing at the moment more than you let on, is I used to see this minor breaker structure and I'd be like, right, it's time to take a trade. I'd enter my trade like this. Okay, I'd put my stop below the low and I'd let it go. And do you know what? I was sometimes successful. I'd get my 2R out, but then I'd come back and be broken even. And my profits were just never that great. This is the reason why. You haven't waited for the zone to be fulfilled properly. Now, personally, until I see a major breaker structure, this for me is always a risk entry. So whatever I do, if I'm trading this, let's say I am trading early, I'm always placing my stop below the ultimate low, which is the raid low, okay? I'm not going to be trading this without my stop below the low, because as you can see here, price has pushed down, it's taken more liquidity out here, and this will happen. Your zones won't always hold perfectly, and then we've had that reaction. So if you had your trade really tight, and you see this on Instagram all the time, these really tight trades, you know, these people that are claiming that they've just taken a 15R out of it, and you know, it's a load of shit. Basically what happens here is people get stopped out over and over again. You need to be conscious of that. Give your trade some room to breathe until you've had a major break of structure. Then you can have faith in the new structure that we have, okay? So this is a minor break of structure, but what price has done is it's created new structure. Look, that's a new high or lower high. Then we have this major break of structure, then we have a return, then we have a push up, okay? So this now, for me, is where I see this trade absolutely validated and verified. And it's really simple. Once we get that major break of structure, after we've tagged into 50% of that zone, this is where we get the really good trades. And this is why you keep getting stopped out over and over again, because you're not waiting for everything to line up. Raid, impulsive move with imbalance, break a structure, preferably major, definitely major if you ask me, and then a return to 50% at least of the zone. The reason for that is when you go to 50% of the zone, the majority of orders are then collected, okay? Positions are closed, buys are put into the marketplace, and then the price can shoot off. Simple as that. Now we trade like this, take 50% of the zone, we know where our low is, we're pretty secure now that that low is probably not going to be swept anymore because we've had this impulsive move up. We've also got imbalance left behind here, okay, loads of imbalance in there as well. For us now, this trade is gold. This is one of those perfect positions. And then let's say we're going up to this demand zone here. Let's just draw a zone around that. Okay, and again, this is a pretty valid demand zone because this itself, this demand zone here, broke major structure. Okay, pretty happy with that all day long. That's a major breaker structure in itself. So that's where I'll be setting my profit target. I take my first position out at around 2R, and then I hold my rest of it up to 10, and then let's see what happens. Nearly out at break even. Just managed to stay in. Let's move this up to the hour. Let's see if it's a little bit quicker. And then boom, got our trade. So you can see when you actually trade the perfect positions and the perfect entries, you get better trades. How many of you at the moment are taking trades week in, week out, some of them win, some of them lose, and you get to the end of the day or you get to the end of the week and you look at them and you look at half your trades and be like, why did I take that trade? Didn't meet any of my criteria. This was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. Stop taking those trades. Wait until everything lines up perfectly. Wait until you've got your raid, you've got your impulsive move with imbalance, you've got your breaker structure, and make sure it is major, and then wait till 50% of that zone is taken. That's what's going to get you the really big trades. That's what's going to show you afterwards where price is going to go. We got here, it was an easy 10R. It took 5th of Jan to 7th of Jan, took a couple of days to get 10R at the marketplace. If you're trading 1% per trade, that's 10% done in 2 days. You're done for the week, possibly done for the month. If you're doing a prop firm challenge, that's the entire challenge done in one trade. It's as simple as that, okay? So guys, stop settling for average. Make sure your trades are perfect every single time. If you've got a checklist of things that you're looking for, waiting for 4 of the 6 things on your checklist is not good enough. Wait for all 6. You will take less trades, but the trades that you will take will be better. And the trades that you will take will win you more money. Simple as that. Now, if you really want to accelerate your trading, make sure you contact me on Instagram at strongmoneyforex, and we can have a chat about my mentorship, my free mentorship I'm running at the moment. I've got a few spaces open. Also, make sure you check out this video, as it's going to accelerate your trading. This is going to get you into better positions. This is going to get you into more high profit trades. And this is going to make you a better trader. So make sure you watch this